Hello, everyone. My name is Jana Kemmer, and I'm sitting here as usual with my co-host Julian Buono.
What's going on, guys and girls? How's it
And
going in isolation?
and this is another episode of Switchcraft Fingerboard Podcast, brought to you from our respective homes due to the aforementioned
Yeah,
isolation.
exactly. More
The
time to fingerboard.
the good thing is, as fingerboarders, we are we are okay with staying at home and can still do our hobbies.
Exactly, that's a plus.
So I
So,
think we start with the most recent thing that's been happening.
oh yeah, the recent developings in major company Black River
Yes,
Ramps.
because Blackriver Ramps doesn't do just ramps anymore, and this has been something that has been in the works for a while, and
I mean, they have been doing trucks since
yeah,
2000 and okay. Anyway,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, this recent development is something that has
yeah,
been in the works for a while, and we both knew would eventually happen. We didn't know the
yeah.
time frame, but we were quite certain that it will happen.
We
So
saw it in our crystal flat faces.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was that Winkler wheels do no longer exist, at least not in the current form, how they were currently developed and how they were currently
Exactly.
distributed.
The context has shifted.
Yes. Not, but fear not. Those wheels or similar wheels do still exist
Yeah,
because
they're still available.
yeah, because a few days ago, when we record this, Black River has launched Black River Wheels. I think that's the official
Mhm.
name they're
Mhm.
going
Yeah,
with.
Blackriver Wheels. Exactly.
And those wheels are more or less what used to be distributed as Winkler wheels.
Yep.
There are some slight variations, like some shapes do no longer exist.
The print is different, of
The,
course.
the print is different. The names of some specific pro
Shapes.
wheels and shapes have changed.
Yep.
So it's more or less the same wheel, but under a completely different name. So,
Mhm.
Julian, uh, can you summarize why the name change happened?
Well, basically, the Winkler Wheels was its completely own thing, founded by Martin Winkler. Uh, the first bearing wheel uh, ever to exist, or one of the first bearing wheels to be commercially available. Um, and in 2009, when Black River fusioned with Berlinwood and Winkler Wheels, adopting the same workshops and working together as a kind of conglomerate.
And
Um,
the same distribution, which
exactly, on the Black River.
yeah,
Um, uh, yeah, what happened is the shapes were reworked. The whole production was a bit more streamlined, a bit mm, away from the single manufacturing of the single wheeled, you know.
yeah, 'cause
Um,
if I might chime in the like I remember way back when Winkler wheels used to be very, very small scale. You could
yeah,
only get them from Martin Winkler himself. And at the beginning, he needed to modify your trucks for you to fit Winkler wheels.
the bearing
Uh,
screws.
yes. And
Mm-hmm.
from that, there, of course, was some development before it got merged into Black River. But
Yeah.
we basically came from very uh, single sale oriented wheels to
Mm-hmm.
basically a mass
Mm-hmm.
production wheel that is also like actually produced in mass at batches at times. So it's not like we do one wheel, one set, and tomorrow we do a different set. It's they did
Yeah,
a
it's a stock.
huge batch and a huge stock, put a lot of money into it, then had it on the shelf, and when that stock was running low, they worked on the next one. And that's how it's been running basically since 2009.
Yeah, and due to personal issues, Blackriver and Winkler, some point in the past, decided to go different ways, and the Corsi knew.
Yeah, I think Martin
You
Winkler.
seeing the symptom now?
Yeah, and
Basically.
Martin Winkler even did a semi-public statement on Facebook like over a year ago, where he publicly
Blackriver, exactly.
quit Blackriver, and there, like to the public, there was no word since then. There was a small
Yeah.
statement he made also on his Facebook account uh, when Blackriver relaunched the website last year, but that was basically it on the topic. Of course, we knew rumors, heard rumblings, but
Yeah.
nothing we would back then talk about. And since most of it is hearsay, we don't want to throw
Won't indulge.
we don't want to throw either party under the bus. So yeah, we just go with the facts that are publicly available.
And the facts are now that the or some of the shapes that were the Winkler Wheels line are now rebranded as Blackriver Wheels, and that due to the distancing, the Martin Winkler signature ramps got rebranded as well. So
there's no Pocket Winkler, no Winkler Mini. Was
no,
there
Winkler
another ramp?
does.
Oh, Winkler does, exactly. Yeah, so basically all uh, the transition products are no longer branded with Martin's signature.
Yeah, they're still the same though.
Yeah.
So if you care strictly about the product, it's completely fine with you, or it should be completely fine with you.
If it was in production before, it will probably still be in production, just under a different name without the signature. But if you want to be really cool, maybe you can get Martin to sign your ramp if you see him somewhere. But I don't think this will be a
wild
possibility.
Winkler appears.
Yeah.
Right. This whole thing has brought me to another slightly nostalgic thing. So this weekend, I
let me just stop you before you get into this.
Sorry.
One last thing I want to mention about the wheels and what has changed is there are, as far as I can tell, at least one shape that's no longer available at all.
Oh yeah.
So formerly the Winkler Fatmans, which were a pro model of a mutual friend of us, Fatman. Those no longer exist, and as far as I can see, they aren't rebranded yet. I don't know if those were creation. Yeah, I don't know if those were creation by Martin Winkler and thus are not eligible to be developed or to be released under Blackriver Wheels, or if Martin Ehrenberger, and I know Martins can be confusing, decided to get rid of all the ties with Blackriver and just didn't want to continue that because of the name that it brings or the history.
Yeah.
So, but as far as I can tell, they are no longer available under a new name. And the other pro wheel that used to exist, the Afrobi wheels, they are, as far as I can tell, still existing, just under a different name without the Afrobi logo on the wheel. So those are basically the street yellow wheels now. Yeah, that's pretty much all we can we can say from everything that has been publicly
Facts.
discussed. And
Yeah.
maybe the last thing, which I found a bit odd, but can also understand, is that Black River didn't make a statement like this, where they said, we no longer carry Winkler wheels, we just carry Black River wheels. They basically just said, here's Black River wheels, and
Yeah.
haven't really discussed or haven't really said that Winkler wheels aren't no longer being carried by them. But I guess that's a fine line for them to walk, so I can understand if they say it would have been too easy to get dragged into controversy, but I think they still got dragged into it. So, but there was probably no good way to go about it.
It's a scene. You can't get clean out of it.
Yeah.
Especially when two involved CEOs are both named Martin. So, on this week's episode of Know Your Martin, so it's just it can be confusing if you're not deeply involved and know the people personally. So
especially since the other, like I would call them, most famous fingerboarders from the German scene are both called Timo. So if someone talks about Timo and Martin, it could be a whole way of constructions of which two individuals are actually.
The fingerboarders, the fingerboarders memory.
But
anyway.
I sadly destroyed your
no worries.
Your perfect segue. So.
Well, you just had to. No worries. So what I got was the first pair of Black River 29mm trucks in 9 years. Since 2011.
Probably your first Black River truck since a good while in general.
Yeah, 2.5 years. I'm pretty happy with the whole setup because I did this weird thing where I just went and measured my last portion of the finger, whatever, and found it to be 26mm long. So I reckoned, all right, the shape that most compares to that is the 29mm shape. That I abandoned in 2011 in favor of a 32mm deck that was gifted to me by Harry. So it was the hype of getting a new deck and the hype of having a deck that was exclusive to only professional riders to that time that made me completely abandon 29mm. And after 12 hours with this setup, I have more control over flips, flip in, flip out, late flip, whatever you name it. It just, everything works, everything's faster. So I think I may have found something that is even more precisely fitting to me.
Yeah, and we want to take this opportunity to talk about trends in fingerboarding in general, and because of this truck thing, because all of you have recognized that fingerboards have been getting larger. Like when I came back into the scene in 2016, it was just like most people were still riding 32mm decks, but there were already quite a few 33.3 and higher decks available.
It's crazy.
I started with I got back into it with my 26mm board, like a 26mm Berlin wood from way back when. And Timo gave me a 32mm board basically on the first day I was back at the shop, or I was at the shop. And he was like, at least give it a try, gave me some cheap dump trucks he had lying around, I bought some bearingless wheels for like $10 because that was all I had. That was all I had in
Shit.
my pocket at that time because I
Right.
just in between jobs and
Okay.
hadn't
Okay.
yet received my first paycheck of the new job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so I basically started getting back into it with 32 millimeters and then slowly got wider and wider, but stopped at a certain point. So for me,
Yeah.
33.3 is my optimum. So I
Uh-huh.
frequently switch between 32 millimeter trucks and 34 millimeter trucks, which actually are 33.3. So
Yeah.
depending on the wheel width, I go with either a 32 millimeter truck or the wider truck. And on some setups, I have a small, like my trucks aren't as wide as my deck, but
Yeah.
I don't mind that too much.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
we've been doing that before 34 millimeter trucks existed. But yeah, so the trend was definitely to get wider and wider, and a bunch of brands have
Just to show the comparison, this is a like for the few people that are actually watching the video. This is a 35 and this is a 29. I mean, it's whatever. This is a pan and this is a match. Whatever.
yeah.
It's crazy. It's just such a wide range.
Yeah, when I
Um,
first saw the white decks, like on my first day, I saw Uncle Urban setting up a Yellowwood setup with
yeah.
34 millimeter trucks, and
Mm-hmm.
since I just came back and still had my 26
Yeah.
millimeter board, I was like, "The fuck
What's
is
this?
that?
What's
Like that's not a fingerboard anymore. That's like a carpet with wheels."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, even for my much shorter break, um, I started with a 26 millimeter Berlinwood, like the old ones from
Mm,
the
from
old
top
Berlin
10.
manufacturing. And then I got back to ASI 5, which was in 2010, 2 years after. And the trend, or Berlinwoods, were 29 millimeters, which I now know to be 28.5. Um, anyway,
They have some problems
specifics.
with rounding. Like,
No, I think they more specifically have some problems with measurements. Anyway, um, the 3 millimeter shift between 26 and 29 was huge. Like the first Berlinwood I got was, what the fuck is this? What should I do with that? It's
mm,
oh, but it works. Okay, okay, let's stick to it. I mean, you can get used to everything, and there is a sweet spot. That's the thing. For me, that's something I managed to learn. It's always it's a compromise. Something flips faster but has less control in the turning, or I mean, it's you have to be more precise with 29 millimeter trucks compared to 32 or 34. But it's always a ratio thing. You want it to flip faster, but you will lose some control. Um, you want it to be heavier because it flips slower and gains control. Well, you will get tendinitis.
or you want to keep it at the same width, but want it to be lighter. Then you can go with something that has fewer plies. Like there are some brands, like for example Drisner decks,
Oh
who
yeah.
started doing successful four plies because it's
Mm-hmm.
like a weird combination of thicknesses uh, and
Yeah.
alignment of the wood grain and stuff like that.
I'm not a friend of that. I'm not a friend of four plies, but
Yeah, and
that's how streamlined the pop is. I
yeah,
don't agree.
and also you could you could go with different materials. Like there's absolutely been like bamboo decks, or at least some plies are bamboo, or uh, some plies are
Carbon.
carbon fiber, or the some are quite
Metal
short.
plies!
Yeah, or metal plies if you want to get metal. But
Yeah.
you could also go just with a shorter deck in general to have it lighter, or a longer deck to get it get it heavier, and also the finish of the deck itself.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I have a bunch of different decks here. I have a flint, which are just printed, screen printed, but don't have a finish on them. So they have no
Exactly.
wax,
No lacquer.
no
No
lacquer, no
wax and no
wax,
lacquer.
no clear coat, nothing. Then
Yep.
there are decks that are just wood, so no artificial stuff put on there, but some sort of lacquer or wax. And
Yeah. For
then
example,
there are,
Gripskin
yeah,
uses oil.
or also the Drisna I'm having is just wood with lacquer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then again, you can have the more uh, broadly available decks, which usually have some sort of graphic, either heat
Yeah.
transfer or otherwise, and they usually have a lacquer on them as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the more layers you put on there,
The heavier it's gonna be.
the more stuff is on there, so the more heavy it is.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to the trends, in the beginning of fingerboarding, like in my time, we saw almost exclusively blank decks because
Yeah.
that was all that was available. Then we saw like people actually printing on the wood, like
Mm-hmm.
putting wood through a printer, and yes, that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
And I've recently seen someone else do that again. So
Mm-hmm.
there was like a small comeback of that.
Still does it.
Yeah, like get an old inkjet printer that doesn't clog up too easily. You can put veneer through it. But yeah, some with the graphics that are now available, and the like how easy it is to create a graphic with stuff like Photoshop, which you can find on the internet if you want to, or some other
Oh,
image editing software.
yeah.
You can create graphics easily, and you can send them somewhere, have them developed as a screen as heat transfers, and
Mm-hmm.
then just apply them to your decks. Which how most people who do decks do them. Only very few people create their own heat transfer,
Graphics.
like
Yeah.
physically create them.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And yeah, so with like the more easier a process gets, the more people you will see using that process. That's been true in general.
Exactly.
Like when someone started figuring out that you can use a router template to find the shape of a deck, pretty much everyone does it now, and it it's just a thing you do. And same with heat transfer. As soon as someone found a way to source heat transfer graphics
Yeah.
and use them, it's
They
just
just
what people do now. And the only
same thing with designs. Once they found
yes,
Photoshop, they just started making newspaper collages.
yeah, and there are a few things which tick me off all the time. Like I've always been a fan of originality. Like if you do a graphic and I've seen that graphic a million times, there's no real reason for me to buy that graphic. Like
Yep.
my personal pet peeve is Baker spoofs. So a spin on the Baker graphic.
Oh,
Like
fucking
we've
hell.
seen that with 1 million of skateboard brands doing that, and now we've seen that with every little kid creating fingerboards in the basement, doing their logo in the Baker style.
And it's
And
so unimaginative. It
yes,
started, I think, maybe with Woob or
yeah, it could be.
I think that's the spark of originality that
Yeah,
was in that idea, and that was it.
and radio skateboards
Weed, radio.
yeah, like radio have been doing that in the skateboard world for a while, and it's so like how many times like if I would save all the images from all the companies who do that,
Yeah.
I don't know how many companies I would have to have done that. And I mean there have been some ones where I actually smiled and found interesting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, it
I
makes me
just
sound
came up.
like a company shill, but I am on the Five Luck team, and Bird also does the uh, Burn One fingerboards which have like a cannabis theme on
Yeah.
them, and he did the baked graphic.
That's
That
wonderful.
I
I
could
would like.
understand, because it wasn't just a brand name in
Yeah.
the Baker font. It was actually a like interesting spin, but even that I was like, it's funny, but it's not for me because I've seen that
I
too
would
many
like.
times.
I would like a Whoop parody. Boop. Just call it Boob.
Yeah, yeah, and also like the other trend that has been going on for far too long is the Masca style.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like people using their silhouette and their name or something.
Flaked did it in 2008. What more do you need to do? It's done. It's cool. It's over.
Yeah, and
It's
I
just
get that some people want to have something that reminds them of the real deal,
yeah.
especially for collections. But then, like, I can more understand companies doing real skate graphics. Like, for
Exactly.
example,
Perfect remakes.
yeah, there's like FB Nature,
Mm-hmm.
who we both know the guy who does the graphics for
Yeah.
FB Nature, because like most people probably know, a fingerboard doesn't have the same ratio as a skateboard. So most graphics need to be extended on the side to fit on the fingerboard. And we both know the guy
If you're
who,
using if you're
yeah,
using something that
but
is too wide, that
even that,
is.
yeah, and we know the guy who extends all the graphics for FB Nature. And FB Nature has been exclusively using skateboard graphics. And even though I
Hmm.
also find that unimaginative, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can at least
Obvious.
understand the appeal of having your favorite skateboard graphic as a miniature on your wall. And I actually paid someone to paint the first deck I owned
Yeah.
onto a blank I had.
Your
So
yellow five lug.
yeah, the yellow five luck with the Artusari Pro model from Flip, from like
Mm-hmm.
uh, around Sorry, like around the Sorry video.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that appeal, but
Mm-hmm.
that would be the only reason for me to buy a skateboard graphic deck for the graphic,
Yeah.
like to like some sort of personal connection. Like I know Fabian Schreiter of Robi, like his
Mm-hmm.
favorite skater is Natas Kaupas, and he that was the reason why he bought the Boom graphic from FB Nature, which is a Natas Kaupas
Uh-huh.
graphic. So
That's cool.
because that was like his favorite skater, and I think he even had that deck way back when as a skateboard. So there's that appeal, but other than that,
Yeah.
like yeah, you do you. It's just not for me. Like
Yeah, yeah.
nothing
I
negative about
totally
that.
understand. Yeah.
It's just a trend that has started going quite rampant in the fingerboard world to have just a graphic that someone else used somewhere. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be exclusively skateboarding, because like the example you showed for everyone who watches the video, uh, there are a lot of graphics where it's just a photo of some celebrity or an album
Yeah.
cover. Like I've seen 100 of, or quite a few. Um, uh, Now the name escapes me. Uh, Yeah, I've seen a bunch of celebrity images with like a name on there,
And gangsters.
and gangsters.
Pablo Escobar on at least yawn.
Yeah, or Biggie, Tupac, like a bunch
Yeah.
of musicians and uh, David Bowie was the graphic I had in mind because I've seen quite a few
Sorry.
David Bowie graphics on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sorry was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just a thing I'm not a huge fan of, but yeah, I understand how hard it is to come up with original graphics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, it has its niche appeal.
yeah,
Like imagine doing a redo of a clip of someone. Like for example, you just have that plain and simple April Skateboards logo on your
mm,
deck, and you're doing a Shane O'Neill clip, and it's like, yeah, that's fitting, that's
yeah,
cool. But I mean,
or if
whatever.
you have a Chris Roberts deck and do a switch flip mani on some high mani pad.
Yeah,
Like there are things that are intriguing about those kind of things, and I certainly looked for clips from Atasari with that specific graphic, but
uh-huh,
I couldn't find
uh-huh.
any. But
Ah!
yeah, but uh, I just think they are a bit overdone, and also when you just use some pop culture thing, like I guess that works, and it's a trend that has been happening in skateboard since the beginning. Like
Yeah,
skateboarding has been ripping off pop culture since before skateboarding was a thing. Like
I mean, it makes sense.
yeah, so it's not that I fault anyone for that. It's more like I would much rather see a clean logo thing with the respective company logo or some sort of
Yeah,
graphic that I haven't seen a million times over and over again.
yeah. Now I want a King Crimson cover on a fucking graphic.
And I'm all about doing custom graphics. So if
Yeah.
uh, like a guy like Nice Place who is from Germany, who's from near my hometown, uh, he started like he does his own graphics and everything, and we both started talking and discovered that we both are huge wrestling fans. And
Yeah.
when he did a graphic for himself with a wrestler, which we both absolutely like because it's fucking hilarious, I was like, I have to get one of that, and he made me another one. So
That's cool.
those custom graphics with things you like, I can totally understand, and I
Yeah.
find that really cool. But if it's like a thing you like that you sell for a million people, then it just loses that special feeling,
Yeah.
like for me.
Totally get you.
But we've been ranting about graphics, I think, for a bit too long.
For
There
quite some time.
there are other trends, but one last thing about the 29 versus 32 and 34 millimeter argument.
Hmm.
Uh, what did you say your phalanx of your finger was like the? I think phalanx is the correct name.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. It's
uh,
26.
yeah, and mine is around 30 millimeter.
Mhm.
So we have
Mhm.
like a 4 millimeter gap between, and we basically have a 4 millimeter gap between the shapes we write, or 5 millimeter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
I'm
that's
on
pretty much.
33.3, so yeah,
There could actually
4.3
be.
millimeters.
Yeah, there could actually be like some correlation between the length of the phalanx and
So
you go into a skate shop and someone and you need a deck and someone is like, okay, what's your height and what's your shoe size?
yeah,
You know?
because like usually younger kids have much narrower decks than some
Yeah.
adult with humongous feet.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
like when I tried to get back into skating, I think we can call it, um, I get recommended a wider deck
Uh-huh.
because I have bigger feet. Like I don't have
Yeah.
huge feet, but definitely not 7-inch
Yeah.
wide board feet.
Yeah,
And
yeah, 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 yeah.
so there's that correlation in skateboarding, and we think there's a correlation for that in fingerboarding. But I would actually
Yeah.
be interested in people measuring their phalanx, and maybe of the index finger is what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
the first part of your index finger that you fingerboard with. So I'd be interested if you tag us in your story uh, with how long your that part of your finger is, and what width of deck
What?
you ride.
Yeah. What's your preferred width?
Yeah,
Another thing is,
maybe we can
it
get a
just
small
doesn't get.
study going.
Yeah, it just doesn't get respected. Like in in a fingerboard shop, people actually, or when you buy components, it's defined by the trend, and the young kid that has totally small hands gets 35, and that leads to a whole trend of
And
tricks, and people are like, why are you so technical? It's not me, it's
yeah,
you.
so
And
one thing we've both seen in the Other Berlin shop is that Timo TKY actually recommends younger kids usually a smaller setup. Like
yeah.
he usually goes when a like I would say 11-year-old goes and
Mm-hmm.
says, "Hey, I want a 34 mm board." He usually goes like,
You sure?
yeah. So there's definitely the thing of most people who buy fingerboard decks don't buy them in person, since there's only a handful of shops worldwide.
Yeah.
So I think the whole recommendation and so that whole aspect is just missing because everyone buys online, and
Yeah.
it we don't know if the person buying is like 10 years old or 30 or 40.
Exactly, exactly. And just because you see like a setup being used by someone, and he's going mad with it, doesn't mean that you're gonna do the same things with it just because it's the same deck. It's according to the performance of the deck in relation to how your hand is built, how your style is built, how many
Yeah.
things around your fingerboarding as a whole work.
Like when I go to the other Berlin shop, like if it when it's open, when we aren't all sitting in quarantine, um, like I barely see two people riding the same setup, like even in a month. Like
Oh yeah, that's
even
rare.
even in 1 month, like over the course of 1 month, I rarely see people riding the exact same setup. Like they
Yep.
have different widths, different deck companies, different widths of trucks, even though the trucks are much more uniform because there are basically only two brands you can choose from and
Yeah.
2 to 3 respective widths. And then like wheels are such a matter of preference, as we say all the time.
Holy.
Like I have 10 setups and I don't think I have the same wheel twice currently. And I probably have more in my box with my spare wheels. So there it's a huge customization thing, and so when someone rides for a bit longer, they usually find what they like or what works best with for some purposes or for every purpose, whatever.
Yeah.
So if you see someone riding a setup and buy the same setup because they ride cool, you should probably more look at why it fits their riding style and what they like to ride and see if you like to ride the same thing or if all those variables are
Yeah.
relatable.
And I mean, if you have the possibility to go all willy-nilly and buy tons of setups and try out till you find your specific preference due to empirically finding it, then or over the course of time, it's completely cool.
Yeah.
But this is meant to be like a facilitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm slowly getting to a point where I know which wheels are my favorite wheels. So
Oh yeah,
I've tried.
what is it?
Like I really like those really big wheels.
Uh-huh.
And since Joycult doesn't do them anymore and Joycult has its problems, I've really been liking the Elastico wheels in
Oh
that
yeah,
size
cool.
because they aren't as grippy
Mm-hmm.
as let's say oak wheels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me it's more about the size and not the specific. Like it, I wouldn't say I would always ride Elasticos, but I'm
Yeah.
getting to a point where I really like that shape, and doesn't
Okay.
matter
Okay.
which companies it's from, because that's also a trend. Like there, as soon as one company starts doing one shape, there's certainly always been that sort of ripple effect through other companies. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
quite sure Joycult was the first one to go that big with wheels. I know Oaks have historically always
That
been bigger,
big, yes,
but
but I think
um,
like historically the boxy, like
yeah,
completely flat on both sides and big
and big,
is an
yeah,
oak thing.
yes, but I think the like then taking that shape a bit further,
Yeah.
that was I think a thing
Mm-hmm.
done by Joycult, and
Mm-hmm.
we've definitely seen that same shape from other companies now. Like
Yeah.
I think uh, yeah, I think quite a few of the American brands do that.
Mm-hmm.
The name escaping me, but
Me as
yeah,
well, to be honest.
they're yeah.
So you tend to be more towards the bigger wheels. So
Yeah,
let's say off the flat face line, your favorite shape would be the J4, the G4.
actually, I don't like that one. I don't know
Oh,
why.
okay.
Like I have a J4 and I have the J Street or whatever,
Uh
and I
huh.
like the smaller wheels much better than the bigger ones in that.
Oh,
But
okay, okay.
historically I always liked uh, the Winkler Fatman wheels.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a theme of bigger wheels. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I
Bigger
said, no,
wheels with big traction
yeah,
sizes, like
yeah.
riding surfaces.
Yeah, and because of that, I
Okay.
think the J's are too grippy for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
the more surface you have, the more traction you
Exactly.
get. And I'm just not the biggest fan of much traction. Like I've been riding plastic wheels for quite a while, like
Yeah.
flat faces and Winklers.
Yeah.
So uh, I only slowly getting back into urethane and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
as soon as as it gets too grippy, it's not for me anymore. But
Yeah.
I definitely like the slightly bigger sizes. Like for example, I've also been liking the Hard Sphere wheels,
Uh
which
huh.
are also a bit bigger than the average wheel, at
Oh
least
yeah.
a bit wider.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'm more on the smaller side. Not too small, like oak minis or flat face cores, whatever. Are not my thing. Like,
Which are an
I don't.
abomination.
Yeah, I don't like tubular wheels. Anyway, I like small riding surfaces, a, a middle-ish amount of grip, not like pure plastic, but middle-ish. I like Jays. What
Yeah.
the fuck? I've been riding Jays since Jays came out.
Yeah,
Exclusively.
and I like wheels, like I said a million times, specifically on a specific setup. So the J's
Yeah.
small wheels I like with dynamics, which are much lower
Hmm.
to the ground than Black River trucks.
I'm not getting wheel bites any longer.
Well, I can't say that with my
Okay,
Elastico bow wheels.
you probably get wheel bites while barely turning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. The fingerboarding microcosm is actually, if you look deeper into it, a macrocosm, because preferences, everything can be analyzed to such a degree that you can actually pinpoint exactly what is for you, what you don't like. It's a hobby. It's just smaller scale.
Yeah, as a very small divergence, uh, now that you mention it, now that you mention the word microcosm, there
Hmm.
is quite a good. It's only a teaser for a documentary,
All right.
but it's on YouTube. I think we both seen it already because in German it came out over a year ago. I think
Uh
almost
huh.
2 years ago. But I just recently realized that
Oh,
it's with English subtitles now. It's called
right.
Die Helden vom Mikrokosmos.
Uh huh.
Uh, I will put a link in the show notes. And it has English subtitles now. It's only like a 7 minute long video, and it has
Yeah.
a few of the German OGs in there. So
Yeah,
just if you,
it has a good vibe. It
yeah,
transmits pretty well what should come across.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Good point.
But to get back uh, uh, to the phases and the trends, like one trend I think everybody who's in the fingerboard cosmos on Instagram has seen is a specific kind or a specific style of filming and doing tricks
Yeah.
and the tricks itself. Like uh, there's
Chef.
there's been one account who has quite a lot of followers, like finger ups, yeah, finger ups,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think he was the first one to get a lot of traction and a lot of interest with that style. There's basically there's definitely been people who wrote like that and filmed like that in the past, but
I
he's
get
like the
what you mean.
most most commonly known.
Prominently
Yeah,
visible
yeah, the
person
most,
who does that.
yeah, and
Um. Um. mm.
so that style is very like the camera is almost touching the board. It's
Yeah.
all tricks are very low. The fingers are very upright, and
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Pointy,
only
pointy fingers style.
yeah,
Exactly.
and
Mm.
and the tricks are mainly like trendy tricks like shove it, nollie shoves. I mean he
That's where I disagree with you because
okay.
I've seen him do the most beautiful switch laser flip I've ever seen, and
That,
it was catched, and it
that
was 2 centimeters high. You know,
that
like it.
that's exactly where I was getting at because a lot of people imitate the kind of style
Okay,
uh, yeah he
he gets
helmed.
across. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a lot of people see him do very upright shove-its and they try to do very upright shove-its filmed really close. But the thing
That's for sure.
where I like separate those two is if you uh, if you do something just because it looks good on someone else and you don't do it because it's your style and it's what you
Yeah.
like and what you've written, it feels artificial. And you can see
Yeah.
that as soon as people get into the more technical tricks, like their other fingers come out again and go into
Uh
the
huh.
stretch position, their hand gets lower and they uh, go away from a pointy style.
Uh huh.
And as
Uh
soon as they do like a nollie heel, they throw their hand into the air
huh.
uh, and with him, like
For
I
sure.
don't like his style at all, but
Okay.
he has very like his style is very consistent. Like he
Yeah.
all the tricks he posts are in the same style, and
For
uh,
sure. Hmm.
it's like it's definitely what he likes and what he thinks looks cool. And so any random 13-year-old on Instagram tries to film like that, it's usually not authentic, and because it's not authentic, it usually doesn't look as good or feel as cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it bores pretty
Yeah,
soon.
because
Like
you can put
I've seen it.
any trap music under there, and you can't distinguish any rider anymore. Like if everyone wrote the same graphic on the board, you probably couldn't tell apart like the majority of people who post
Yeah,
clips like.
yeah,
And I think we both have very uh, distinguishable styles of filming ourselves. So
like
we both have very distinguishable styles of filming. Like I can always tell if Julian filmed a clip,
yeah,
and I'm quite new to filming myself, but I think you can tell how I set up a clip. Like doesn't matter if it's on a tripod or self-filming. I think the way I position the camera, the way I position lights,
yeah,
it's more or less the same for every trick. So, and it's how I do it, and yeah, and I think that kind of style of filming always looks better, at least for me, when
yeah,
when I see it somewhere, because like when all of your clips look the same from the feeling, I like it much more than when they switch all the time or when it's like not consistent. But
uh-huh.
yeah,
No, for sure.
I just like when you can tell someone put thought and effort into a clip. Even though my clips aren't always the cleanest, I at least try to put as much effort in as is feasible, reasonable.
Yeah. I totally understand that. Like, I'm rarely 100% satisfied with a clip, and most of the things I film are refilmed. Um, but
Yeah.
it's it's always like a battle, and it always has to.
And,
I don't
and
know.
at a certain point, you're just over the battle. Like at
Yeah.
some point, when you landed, you're like, okay, this battle is over. I'm gonna take that, no matter how it looks.
And you see, riders are different even in that. Like for the setup checkout I made yesterday, I filmed an ender and I had such a massive battle with it, and the clip I got in the end was alrightish. Like you could clearly see what it was, and it was okay, but it was not my standard, and I was like,
Mm,
nah, I'm gonna change the ender of this clip
yeah,
just because I don't like how this turned out.
yeah,
Like, but I mean, you probably have that as well.
yes,
If the trick is worth it, it's something else.
yeah. Yeah, I think we could go on for quite a while about this
Oh
topic,
yeah,
but I think let's just wrap this up.
yeah. This is a wrap for today. I think this is a good point to leave it.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. And
Yeah, thanks
like
for
I said
tuning in.
earlier, I really would be interested in you sending us the length
Phalanx
of
sizes.
the phalanx size of your index finger. I
If
hope that's the
someone
right term.
if someone has understood phallus during this whole podcast,
We don't
please
want you to send
don't.
us an image
Exactly.
of you
No dick
measuring
pics.
your.
No dick
Yeah, no.
pics. Please.
I think
Please and thank you.
now that you send it, it will happen. Yeah, but we're just interested in the
I'm
size of
already.
your index finger you write fingerboard with, not anything else you might write your fingerboard with.
I'm already imagining like the pic in my Dropbox
Please,
of
please don't
of
continue. Let's.
Slow Noise who designed a penis graphic just to measure. Anyway,
Yeah.
fuck it.
Yes. So thank you so much for listening. We're new on iTunes and Spotify,
Oh
so
yeah, for sure.
you can find us there. I
Tune
also
in
try
there.
to keep our YouTube channel up to date, where you can find the video uh, of this thing. So yeah, follow us on Instagram or
Oh yeah.
follow us respectively, and yeah, you can listen to us in the next episode whenever we get around to it.
For sure. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and happy 420.
Bye.
Bye.